All right. Let's go here. There we go. Happy Mother's Day. Let me do something real quick. There we go. There we go. Boom. There we go. Wonderful. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're seeing this. Although this is specifically a Mother's Day. I wanted to say happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to test this out on a live run, live on my stream, because I feel like it's more engaging and it's something that represents more what I'm called to do, right? So I want to start off with a few passages that, while I was praying about this message, and I haven't been consistent with a lot of my messages recently, which I hopefully in the next few weeks that changes. I wanted to start off with two passages. Proverbs 22:6 that says the following. I'm going to be using the English Standard Version this time. Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that message, that word is very important because it reminds me of a time where I always hear that story, right? Like, instruct a child, show him the ways of the Lord, and even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. And then I will go to Proverbs 3:5-6. A little error there. I can fix that later. That says, Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. One of the most important things that I've learned growing up is that prayer is very powerful. Prayer is something that when it's done with faith, when it's done in the correct way, amazing things happen. And I know a story of a young boy that, while he was growing up, he had a calling thrusted upon him by God to preach, to be a pastor. And this little boy, through prayer, he would ask the Lord, I just want to be able to worship, to be able to play an instrument. And as this little boy grew, the Lord one day at a church retreat received his calling at a young age. And this little boy, when he became a teenager, started to struggle with a lot of things that teenagers struggle with, right? Lust, fighting. A lot of things happened in his life, but every single time when things looked like they were gonna get worse, there was a mother that was teaching him the way. And how did this mother teach him? Every day, they would pray at night in a circle in their living room. Once a week, they will meet as a family and they will read the Bible And once a week, they will take time to play together. They will play cards. They will play Monopoly. Every week, they would take time that before, when everybody got home, they will sit at the table. And when dinner was ready, whoever cooked that day, they will pray before eating. And this little boy continued to grow, and he was a teenager. And when he turned 18, that he was on his way to college, he suffered a loss that he felt that, in his opinion, changed his life. He lost his grandmother. He didn't have a chance to say goodbye. And that set him on a path of starting to drink in college. He started to go out and dance. Even though he was serving in the church, he was living a double life. He wasn't living a life that was correct. And he remembers, this little boy remembers that one day he was on his way to play with his friends with a band that he had at the time. And they were late. And obviously his friends, with misjudgment, were going at excess of velocity. They were going too fast. And this little boy remembers seeing within an inch, within a few feet, how the small car that they were in, that was probably going around 80 to 90 miles per hour, was bumped over by a gush of wind and avoided a terrible accident that would have ended that little boy's life, his friends, and the friends that were in this car. And he couldn't understand why. Because every night, even though he was walking away from the Lord, there was a mom praying for him every single night, every single day. This little boy finished college. He had his job, and his job was taking away from his calling. And he had an experience with God that he said, you know what, from this day forth, I'm not drinking again. And he started stepping back into the things that the Lord wanted him to do. And he got reminded that his calling was still alive. So he decided to start serving in his mother's church. He started working with the worship team, ended up starting to lead them. And throughout that time, a lot of things started to transpire in his life that his calling seemed apparent, but he was still struggling with a lot of things in his life. He was struggling with lust. He was struggling with his relationships. He was struggling with a lot of things that he needed to handle, between the frustrations of losing his grandmother, the frustrations of losing his family, the person that he loved, and not having a stable presence in his life that could guide him at all times, because he had not built that relationship with God. He relied on the faith of others and what God told him at every single altar call that he went to. But at that time, he had a mom that was praying for him every single day, every single night. At one point, this young man started to do the things that he needed to do. He started to go into the Word, tried his best to work through it, right? Even with struggling with finances, struggling with his job. And to correct a lot of the things that he was doing wrong, he decided, hey, I'm going to get married. And he got married. And before he got married, he was called to serve as a pastor. And a lot of the times when we get our callings, right, and for those of you listening or here or who eventually see this message, you will see that you get your calling sometimes, but sometimes the Lord puts people in the way to tell you, hey, have you prayed to the Lord about this? Have you talked to him about this? Have you taken the time to think about this? And sometimes that person is going to come to you, and it's going to be the person that you say, you know what, it's okay, I'm fine. And that, in this boy's case, it was his mom. His mom said, are you sure? Take time, think about it. Ask the Lord if this is what you need to do. And all this little boy had in his head is like, you know what? They're opening a door for me to do it. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. That was his thought process. And boy, was he right. It was hard. He was sent to a small church in a little island as an associate pastor, where in a few months, sadly, he had to be moved to another church or a small mission because there were certain things that were said to him at that time. This young man, because he's no longer a boy, was told that he could not lay hands on people to pray for them after he preached. He was told to not engage in Holy Spirit activities as praying in tongues or praying with people individually or letting them know that prayer has power. And as a young man, that boy just couldn't understand how leaders of a church that he grew up in, a church that taught him the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of the Father, the Son, could be saying that, especially from leaders that have been through Bible college, have been through seminar, have gotten their degrees, have been serving for years, and you see how they moved and how they did things. And then he was moved to a small mission, and his faith was dwindling. He was living a double life. His matrimony was falling apart, and he had lost his job. He was doing all this of the love of the mission of Christ. He needed to have his own job, and he's lost his job, and he couldn't find a job. He spent months looking for a job. And one day, an opportunity opened for him to go to a different church. And he started working there, but he still hadn't found a job. And this young boy tried his best to do what was right, do what needed to be done. And he continued looking for jobs, and nothing came around, and all in his despair, because a lot of times in our despair, we go to the Lord with our hearts broken down, with our minds, all walls all taken down. And that's how you should go to the Lord a lot of the times. Not putting your demands, but saying, Lord, like, whatever you want me to do, what do you need me to do? And this is why I go back to what I said earlier, is that sometimes you will think it's time for you to start your calling, but it's not. And sometimes it is. And sometimes the Lord will put everything in place, but I will tell you something. When you open up your heart in prayer and you build that relationship with God, you don't need to doubt when it's time for you to start your calling. You don't need to doubt the things that you need to do. And that young man took his time, and he started praying every day, sending resumes, sending stuff. And he said, Lord, I just need a job. I need a job that allows me to work and serve you, and I'll continue serving you however I need to do. But if you don't, like, my family needs this. And the Lord continued to tell him and show him through messages and different things, like, your first ministry is your family. Your first ministry is your family. You have to make sure your family is okay. And this young man started to pray, started to send resumes, started to send things, but he didn't know that there was a mother that was constantly praying for him. A mother that was constantly bending her knees, even though they hurt, even though they were technically broken. He was praying alongside that prayer of his mother. And a door was opened, and he did the right thing. He went to his leaders and he said, hey, I have this opportunity. I need to go. There's a job offer that is moving me to a different state. I need to resign from being a pastor at this church. And he consulted with his leaders and his mentors and the people around him and even his parents, and they all agreed. And during that time, he told himself, well, I can find a church. And it's funny now that I recall this part of the story, because he could find a church, and he tried to go to several churches, but there was something amiss. He was hurt. He felt that there was something missing, and he couldn't lay his finger on it. And every time he went to the church, he started a few weeks and then stopped going. He moved to the new state, started working, helping out children, helping out families in need. And even though he didn't return to drinking, he fell. He started going out partying with his wife, with his friends, and with people he knew. And a lot of things transpired where eventually his life started deteriorating again. Finances were wrong. The relationship was falling apart. He was getting angrier and angrier and aggressive and throwing things, breaking things, to the point that it got to the point that he almost got kicked out of his own home. But this young boy didn't know that. This young man didn't know that he had a mother that was praying for him at all times. He didn't know that because even though he kept his promise to never drink again, he was using recreational marijuana, and he lost a lot of his dreams for months and years. He couldn't dream. And this young man continued on to work and through several jobs throughout the years, but then he landed a job at a school. And in that school, he met a few people, and he recalls of one person that just one day, never, after a lot of difficulty, because we know we have difficulties in job, and that's a story for another time. But this young man not only had a mom praying for him, he had two moms. He had a mother-in-law also praying for him and his wife, because certain events had transpired where the family really thought at one point that the young man and his wife were going to get divorced, and they started praying. And even when one day this young man, after a breaking point where he was just done with everything, where at one point he even told his wife, months before him telling to go to church, he told his wife, I don't want to go to, I don't think I'll ever go back to church. Church hurt me too much. Church did too many things to me. And at one point, between the arguments and him taking time to come down to his office and just think and go through the motions and listen to music and start figuring out things, he decided to pay a visit to church. And why am I telling you this? Because for 10 years, she prayed for me. She prayed for me for the past 10 years. And I'm 38. She's prayed for me probably for more than that. This is my mother. And I'm sharing this because I know there's a lot of moms out there that probably haven't had a chance to see their sons come back to church, come back to serving the Lord, because anybody can go to church, right? It's actually deciding to serve the Lord in the right way, to serve the Lord by building a relationship with him. And it's been hard because a lot of the mistakes I made through the past 10 years, now I'm trying to correct and pivot in the right way. And the only thing I can say to all of you is Happy Mother's Day. And this is my mother-in-law too. Her and my mom have prayed for me and my relationship with my wife for so many years. For 13 years. 14 going on now. Almost 13. Yeah. And almost 14 now. And there's so many things that I wish I could have done differently. But I am grateful to God that I have these two women, that my mother is a reverend and my mother-in-law is just a woman that fears God. That she's still learning a lot of things, but she's always had prayer on her mind. And what do I want to mean with this? It doesn't matter what education you have. It doesn't matter what you do. If you have faith, right? If you have faith and you pray every single day for your children, I will guarantee you that God will reach them wherever they're at, however they are, no matter how lost they are. And you can break off the things that the enemy wants for them. You can break off a lot of things and get them connected. And the last thing I want to share with you is Mark 5:35-42. That says, while he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not fear, only believe. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion of people, weeping and wailing loudly. And when he entered, he said to them, why are you making commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. Taking her by her hand, he said to her, Talitha kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the little girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. And I share this with you because this story is one that we've heard a million times. One that every single one of the miracles of Jesus, and it reminded me that there are moments that you will be crying for your child. There will be moments that you will just be screaming like, why, like, why doesn't he come back? Why doesn't he listen to me? Why doesn't he or her do the things that I want to do? And the only thing that Jesus wants you is, like he told the father at the ruler of the synagogue, do not fear, only believe. Your child is not dead. They're only sleeping. They're only sleeping in the spirit. Their spirit is asleep, but you continue pressing on. You continue pressing on to the Lord, and you will see that eventually that promise will be fulfilled. All those promises that were given to your children, all those promises that they were going to be musicians, that they were going to serve the Lord, that they were not going to go away. That's why we go back to Proverbs. If you instructed them when they were young, they will come back. And if at that time you weren't in the Lord, that's okay too, because you can also pray for your child and break those things off and start stepping in and start claiming them for the Lord. That is a process. It takes time. And then it's not in your time. It's not in my time. And I don't promise that everything is going to be fine, right? Because that's not what Jesus promises us. But you continue to pray. You continue to work through it. You continue to go through it. And just have faith. Don't be afraid. Just believe. And I just wanted to do this short live stream for this today because it's Mother's Day. And I wanted to tell my mom I love her. I miss her. I miss them both. Because I'm all the way I'm in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and they're in Puerto Rico. Literally a 4-hour flight. Plus 2 hours of driving. Or an hour and a half. 2 hours. So, happy Mother's Day. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day. And like I always say, stay safe, stay blessed, and let the Lord do the rest. God bless y'all.